So thank you very much, parents, for joining us for Parent University. This is session number 6, I believe, of Parent University. We will be recording this and we'll be putting up on YouTube for those of you who might want to watch it on YouTube later on, as well as if you have any questions on the live session, you can answer those or you can post those on the Q&A. If you're watching this recorded after the fact, there is a link that we'll be putting underneath the video where you can then submit questions to either state and federal programs or maybe a side or maybe Dr. Appel, and we will go ahead and post the answers to those on our Parent University website. I will also put that link underneath the video so you can go back and look at the answers. We have Dr. Appel here with us from UCSD Extensions, and he will be providing us today with a wonderful presentation on setting cell and charting a new course. Thank you, Dr. Appel, for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. And if Ms. Delgado is anywhere out there in the audience, hello to you. Hello to all of you in live online and to also those of you who may be watching at home. As I've mentioned before, every week we take a look at a picture of a campus, and anybody who can guess what campus it is and where it is wins a prize. Well, before we even got rolling, I presented a picture of the library at UNAM in Mexico City, thinking nobody would probably get that. Everybody got it. So I will be showing you another picture where you can win a prize where things perhaps are not that obvious, but congratulations to all of our winners. And I think that in the near future, you will see a good deal of collaboration between ourselves and UNAM and some of the other post-secondary institutions in Mexico and throughout Latin America. So yes, today we are actually going to set sail. We were tooling around a bit in the harbor. We were making ready for our journey. We took a look at cognitive and socio-emotional development. We had the opportunity to take a look at what kinds of post-secondary opportunities are out there, including colleges and universities and gap year programs and employment. But today we are actually going to put the pedal to the proverbial metal and we are going to set sail. And today we are going to finish up this idea of how do you choose and explore financial aid, because it's one thing to say, I want to go somewhere, and it is another thing altogether to say, can I afford it? So would I love to drive a Rolls Royce? Absolutely. Can I afford it? Most likely no, but we're going to also explore some of the popular myths associated with college and university affordability. So let's get started. And again, UNAM Library, Mexico City. Now, as we return to our parent university, we always will come back to this idea of the intersectionality between head, heart, and hands, and therein lies high performance. And yes, for college, for universities, it's always great to have academic performance. It's always great to have good grades, but we're also talking about cultivating a dedication to service to others. We were just on the phone today with the United Nations talking about academic programs for high schoolers as well as college students that look at service and that are sponsored by the United Nations. So it does go a long way all around the globe, as a matter of fact. Developing a lifelong love of learning. You never stop learning. You don't stop learning in high school. You don't stop learning in college. We are hardwired to learn. That is what drives our survival. And then, of course, developing those sets of essential skills that will push us through life. This idea of being able to think critically, think creatively, be able to work with one another and to work independently and to bounce back from things. So even when we're talking about filling out a form or perhaps taking out a student loan or applying for a scholarship, it's all going to come back to what drives us. And that is this intersection between head, heart, and hands. Now, What you'll see later in this presentation is we're going to look at the story of Odysseus and the sirens. And when we refer to something being a siren song, it's something that lures you in. And the mythology around the sirens is that the songs were so sweet that it would cause sailors to crash their ships against the rocks. And you can think of this almost like a rumor mill. So as we're thinking about people making choices, our children and our young adults making choices about college, let's think about some of the reasons students may not consider college, may not think that it is for them. So one of those is that no one in the family has gone to college. They may be the first. And that's exciting in a lot of ways, but it's also a big burden to carry. And they may not have familiarity with some of the experiences associated with college. They think that college will be too hard or they won't get in. And certainly some of our own campuses have a great deal of culpability here. We often say that we have kids with 4.8 GPAs. I didn't even know that was possible, but apparently it is, who have served in Congress, wrote a Grammy-winning song, starred in their own TV series, and cured a disease, but still did not get in as an undergraduate. So we're going to also look at some of that mythology, most likely in our next session. Or they don't know how to choose a college, and making a good choice is very important, as is making choices around funding college. Being away from family and being away from the familiar is hard for a lot of our kids. Missing parties, missing dances, missing their friends, missing family gatherings can be hard. And when I say being away, that doesn't mean you have to travel halfway around the world. That could mean just 20 miles up the street. It could mean just down the 8, but being away, because one of the things that we know that when you get to campus, it is like moving to another country in a lot of ways. There's a new landscape, there are new people, there's a new language, there's getting around, there's figuring out the system. So it may feel very, very unfamiliar. Now, thinking that they can't afford college, and we're going to go really deep into that one in this session, as well as the language and hidden codes of college. And there are a lot of these, and even as the son of 2 professors, I didn't have a handle on all of them. And it was a learning experience for me, especially at some of the campuses where there are resources, but you as an individual have to make the effort to seek them out. Even something as simple as, can I take 2 classes that are across campus from one another, and will I be able to make it on time? So that sort of information that will be part and parcel of our upcoming sessions. So here are some of the reasons students may not consider college. Again, what do we need? What are the qualities that are essential? One is the ability to work together, to work in groups. And that mirrors the way that the workforce is. Sometimes you'll work individually, sometimes you'll work in groups. To be able to do that, you have to have top-notch communication and interpersonal skills. We talked about socio-emotional development, and we talked about some of the pitfalls of that and how it relates to the ways that our brain works. You have to solve problems. And I don't mean math problems, I don't mean physics problems, I don't mean social problems or those associated with things like urban planning, but really figuring out how to do something. And luckily for us, the brain is specially designed to do that. And at the time that most kids will consider entering post-secondary education, their brains are primed for that. And we know that from our study of the fundamental neuroscience. Managing time is absolutely essential. And one of the reasons that kids tend to feel overwhelmed when they first get to college is because there's so much stuff out there for them to do. There are clubs, there are classes, there are lectures, there are social events, there are concerts, there are new friends, and really trying to organize and make time for everything can be difficult. So in as much as we can provide support and time management, as it's important. Leadership, various types of leadership. That doesn't mean that you direct everybody on all projects all the time, but it really means how to take a lead as well as be a good part of the team, and how to prepare. So these are metacognitive skills that we highlighted as important in some of our last sessions, but they become more important. And as you apply for college and as you apply for financial aid, you can practice these skills. So it is a good run up to that. So how do we find the right place? And we talked a lot about this the last time. We looked at a variety of options. One is, do not rush the process. Oftentimes we will get a brochure, and we know what these brochures look like. They make the campus look absolutely a stunning museum quality at UC San Diego. We have certain days where the weather is just perfect, and those are the days that all of the campus photographers are out there taking pictures. So, others will get acceptance letters and they will just sign up for the first one they get. This is really making a choice. This is the next 4 to 5 years or more of your life. So it is incredibly important to be measured as you make the choice. Oftentimes, and this is sort of the opposite issue of, sort of these stunning, ornate campuses, oftentimes the physical attributes of a campus or a student body that you see in the brochure, you may say, well, that's really not what I envisioned college to look like. This doesn't look like UCLA, or this doesn't look like Harvard, or what a college should look like. So it's important not to solely base a decision on the physical attributes of a campus, and it is done all the time. Social atmosphere is important. And I don't mean, are there a lot of parties? I don't mean, can I make a lot of friends? But really, one of the key elements to survival in one's first 2 years of university experience, and for many colleges and universities, these are designed to test resilience. These are designed to, to make sure that you have what it takes to stay. You really do need a network of support. You really do need to seek out others, in a variety of different ways. So social atmosphere can be important. Cost obsessions or carelessness, and this has to do with how we fund college. So if you think about some schools, this happens a lot with medical school, and you look at the costs and you say, there's no way that I can afford this, so I'm not even going to try. On the other hand, we have something that we know with cost carelessness, to say, well, I can borrow and borrow and borrow, so what does it matter what the cost is? I don't have to pay it now. It's the old buy now, pay later that sort of draws you in. So we have to make those decisions with care. Just as we select a school, we also have to finance our education in the same way. Parents and peer pressure. And I think I shared a story with you all not too long ago where, I was sitting with my mother and our 6th grade counselor, and you can imagine that this was a long, long time ago when there was a 6th grade counselor. This was back in the Stone Age. But we were talking about thinking about college and where to go. And my mom said, well, no, we want him to be happy. We want him to go anywhere he likes, as long as it's the Ivy League, West Point, or Annapolis. So again, oftentimes kids will feel pressure to go somewhere where their parents went, where they are legacies, or their parents are alumni, or they will make the opposite decision. They will avoid going somewhere where their parents went to distinguish themselves. And we talked about this in identity development. So that really does factor in. And then relying on reputation. We all sort of run to see what are the top colleges and universities according to US News and World Report and some other media. And oftentimes, parents and students will say, okay, well, what are the top rank? That doesn't mean is this the best fit for me? That just means, well, this is the best school according to US News and World Report, and that's where we're going. So reputation alone does not make for the best college experience. In fact, it can have the opposite effect. So if you don't do well in large lecture halls with 400 other students, going to a big campus will not serve your educational needs, where maybe going to a smaller, perhaps lesser known liberal arts college may do the trick. Or if you are interested in perhaps attending a trade or a voc tech school, same thing. So reputation alone does not make for a perfect experience. You want to really think about who you are as students and why are you going, and be very honest about that. Where do I fit? What are my values? What do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I value in an educational experience? What did I like about high school? What did I not like about it? And really think about, why am I going? Am I going because my parents expect me to? Am I going because I need a job at the end of this? Now, community matters more than size. And this is where we talk about quality over quantity. So again, this is the case for the smaller liberal arts colleges where the community is very tight and very supportive, versus some of these larger institutions where you might not find the same thing. A brand does not always translate into success for the individual. The Ivy League is a well-known and very distinguished brand that goes all the way back to the 17th century, but it doesn't mean that everybody will be successful there. You don't have to pick a major to select a college. There are certainly colleges that are distinctive in terms of their rankings in terms of majors, but you don't have to select a major to select a college. And you can afford it, but that decision has to be made very carefully, and we're going to talk about that in a second. You don't have to go right away. And I think I shared the story. Had I gone to a large institution like UC San Diego, like UCLA, like Cal, when I was 18, I was not sufficiently mature to handle that. I was too vulnerable to the lure of different extracurriculars, where it took me 2 years at a community college really to find my maturity, find my epiphany, and really decide, okay, now I really need to buckle down. So you don't have to go right away. A gap year, again, done right, is a great way to hone down a decision. Some of the certificate programs, like those offered by the Division of Extended Studies at UC San Diego, can find you well suited in a rather high-paying entry-level job. And this isn't to discourage anybody from going for a degree, but it can prepare you for both the workforce and the degree. And sometimes you want to go to work and really figure out where to go from there. And it's never too late. I am very fortunate to be married to a returning student. We met at the Claremont colleges where I was doing doctoral work, and my wife was what they called a returning student, which means an older student as an undergraduate. So it's really never too late. And not just for your kids, for you as well. And again, you can't believe the hype. And what I mean by the hype is, don't believe everything that you hear. Check it out. If they say, well, nobody gets in here, or you have to have a parent who went here to go here, or the barrier to entry is too high. Check it out. Don't believe it. Consult with others who may be involved in post-secondary education. And again, as always, fit is most important. Fit will determine your college experience and how valuable. If you've had a good experience in college, we all know about the neurochemistry of persistence. And that's really what we're trying to follow here. And what you see here, by the way, if anybody is curious as to what campus this is again, this is UC Irvine. This is not an architectural rendering, but an actual picture of UC Irvine being built. Irvine used to be just a large ranch with nothing there. Amazing, everything that's there now, but this is UC Irvine being built probably around 1965. And those buildings actually still stand. Interesting fact about UC Irvine. If you ever wanted to know what people in the 1960s thought the 2020s would look like, you are looking at it. If you rent Planet of the Apes, the second one that came out, you will see Social Science Hall as well as Social Science Tower, because the producers believed that that is what the future would look like, this sort of honeycombed architecture. So a little bit of triviality for you with UC Irvine. So it is also not only about finding a good fit, but finding a sense of confidence. This is incredibly important for first generation students, or maybe students who have not done so well in high school. And we know from our study of socio-emotional development, we know from our study of the teenage brain, is that students at this age are their own biggest critics and own worst enemies. They are not likely to tell you about their anxieties, but they suffer from imposter syndrome and perhaps feel as though they don't belong. How do you abate this? How do you create a sense of confidence around college going? Well, one of the ways that you can do is take advantage for exposure and immersion. The idea is by the time that you get to, let's say, UC San Diego, but it could be Cal, it could be Cal State San Marcos, it could be, William and Mary. But the idea is if you engage with college early, it becomes more familiar. So it isn't a culture shift. It is not a culture shock when you get there. So the way that we work in our pre-college programs is to, bring kids onto campus or associate with campus as young as 4th or 5th grade. So coming to UC San Diego at some point will just be another natural, logical step in their education. The most important thing that you can do, regardless of where they are headed, is to let them know that you are proud of them and that they belong there. That irrespective of what they've done in the past or their status, that they belong at the university. The university is enriched by the diversity of our faculty, staff, and students, and let them know how resilient they are. And don't just tell them that, give them examples of where you've seen that. It makes absolutely all of the difference in the world. Now, for those of you who did not get a chance to jump in on the UNAM library in Mexico City, here is another building that you can guess. So I'm going to need from you the name of the campus and the building. And I will tell you that this building no longer stands. This building was destroyed not too long ago. And I will give you the slightest of hints. This is in California. So off you go. Now, a lot of parents are very anxious about choices of majors. And I remember when I was a researcher in the ArtsBridge program, we had a lot of parents and even some teachers and administrators who were very skeptical about the value of the arts. Now, this was not recently. This was, I would say, probably in the mid-1990s. And parents were very concerned about choice of majors and are you making the right one, and why would you go into the arts? You're not going to be sketching caricatures on the boardwalk. But the thing here too is that there are a lot of students who become anxious about their choices, and oftentimes we have kids who are committed to a major probably as early as middle school, where they'll see something about a novelist or a firefighter or a doctor on TV, and they'll say, that's what I want to do. That's the only thing I want to do. and then they wind up getting to college, and a world is open to them, a world of arts and humanities and economics and social sciences and sciences. So there are a lot of doubts and there are a lot of second thoughts. When you get your first C, when you feel lonely, oftentimes kids will wonder, did I make the right choice? Should I change my major? Should I change my campus? And you should know as parents, especially when they get to us here at UC San Diego, work is intensive. And the faculty do not consult with one another to say, hey, how much homework are you giving? Okay, well, I'll give less. That's not the way it works. It is very intensive and very time consuming. And there are a lot of events on campus and there are a lot of interaction. So you may not see your son or daughter as often as you might think, even if they are just at college down the street. But you've got to know that even though they aren't there with you at some of these events, they're there with you in spirit, and that they do care. And the best thing that you can do as parents is give them the opportunity to become immersed in the culture and landscape of college, because it is transformational. But you may worry about, well, what are they teaching my kids there? I hear all of these things, what if my kids are led astray by some of the social events, and I just read about all of these parties and arrests and things like that? Trust in your son or daughter. They will retain the value views instilled in them. Remember, we talked about Gandhi saying that parents are the first teachers that a child or a young adult will have, and the home is a university, and parents are the first teachers. So trust that they will retain the values that you've instilled. They will find their way, and they're going to use those values as a way to navigate new experiences and new ways of thinking. So the idea here is that you've helped prepare them for the journey, and you are on the journey with them. And certainly at UC San Diego, what we like to do with kids in that situation is we like to provide support for the entirety of the family. So a lot like we are doing here with Parent University, we have programming for parents, and we have programming for younger siblings. We understand that when one kid goes, they may come to our campus. You may send us only one to the dorms on our campus, but going to college is a family affair insofar as we are concerned, and you're part of our family. Just by coming here, you are part of the Triton family. Again, we know that kids tend to be paralyzed by choice. And we usually, the thing is that universities open up their doors, they give you a look behind the curtain, say, look at all of these amazing things available here. But before we show you the rest, you've got to decide. You have to make a decision. What is your major going to be? Are you going to be a biology major? Are you going to be a humanities major? And you know what? Whatever pathway you choose, whether it be a major or whether you start out in college or you start with a gap year or you start with work experience, those pathways are not going to predict your future, and they're not going to guarantee your future. There was a time way back when if you had a bachelor's degree, then you could write your own ticket and you could work for a company for 25 to 30 years and retire there. But nowadays, what we are doing is we are preparing students now for jobs that do not even exist yet. When I was in college, the idea that there would be a way to communicate instantaneously with people from around the world was crazy talk. Things like YouTube and TikTok, were inconceivable. So we find that a lot of graduates have jobs that have nothing to do with what they've studied in college. Again, a lot of what we do here at the university is not just provide content, but provide ideas about ways of thinking. My major was in political science, and I've dabble a bit in policy, but I'm not working for the United Nations or the government in any sort of way. But if you think about it, if you look at this Department of Labor study, the average 20-something switches jobs once every 3 years. Again, for somebody like me from Generation X, absolutely inconceivable how that could happen. And the average person changes career fields 2 or 3 times in their lifetime. And I will bet post-pandemic, or as we emerge from the pandemic, we will find that that has changed even more, as a result of what they're calling the Great Resignation or the Great Retirement. So just a little bit to think about there. Now, as you are thinking about applying, and as you are thinking about admissions, and as you are thinking about supports that are available, we at Division of Extended Studies have resources. We have a program called Admit One, which is a partnership between us and the San Diego Public Library. These are free programs that help with test preparation and college counseling. We also at the Education Channel on UCTV, this is a channel that my colleague and I run. We have all sorts of espresso shots of admissions. They're easy 15-minute watches in both English and in Spanish that talk about college admissions and the college admissions process, interviews with admissions officers. So you get a more well-rounded picture of what is going on. All right, so we talked about Odysseus, and we talked about the song of the sirens, and directly from the Odyssey comes this quote: "But do ye bind me with grievous bonds, that I may abide fast where I am, upright in the step of the mast, and let the ropes be made fast in the ends to the mast itself. And if I implore and bid you to loose me, then do ye tie me fast with yet more bonds." So you may say to yourselves, what is this all about? What are you talking about? The idea here, it is easy to buy into the anxieties associated with paying for college. Even myself, I gave you a scary story about the amount of student loan debt that is out there, that it eclipses credit card debt and mortgage debt. And if you succumb to the rumors, if you succumb to the hype, you may say, well, the college is out of the picture for us. We can't afford to take on that kind of loans and all of that sort of things. So if you are going to be in an environment where you hear the siren songs, well, then tie yourselves to the mass and get some good information. And that's what we are going to start with now. Can I afford it? When you make a big purchase, if you are buying a home, if you're buying a car, if you're buying a computer, if you're buying technology, one of the questions that always comes up is, can we afford it? And that question also is applicable to education. So can we afford the higher education? And that will impact your decision where you're going to go or if you are. And again, the news cycle is filled with horror stories about student loan debt and skyrocketing costs and how much are faculty being paid. New buildings are going up. So this is a very, very important question. And the answer is yes, you can. You absolutely can. But at the same time, you can go onto a car lot with easy financing, and the terms may not be great. But the idea here is that you have to take a reasoned approach with paying the costs of 4 years or more of college. You do have to think about it. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a little yellow box coming on the screen. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to start sharing once again. And as I did, I see somebody got Verducci Hall at San Francisco State. I do not know how that is possible that you got that, but congratulations to you. Yes. And the reason I posted it there is I used to live there. It had a wonderful view of Lake Merced and the Sunset District of San Francisco. So congratulations on such a spectacular guest. I need to up my game, I believe. All right, so let's think about this. Um, if you think about 4 or more years of tertiary education, especially at private colleges or universities, it is easy to take on $200,000 to $300,000 of debt. I mean, that is, you could buy a home or something like that for that kind of money. And that is not out of the realms of possibility. So the idea this is an expensive and can be a daunting prospect if you don't pursue it in a way that makes sense. Again, these kinds of costs are not uncommon, and students are carrying around with them who've graduated either from bachelor's degrees or master's degrees are carrying around crippling debt that they will not be able to pay off in a lifetime, because with added interest and added fees, the cycle keeps churning. But student loans are not the only way to go. There are millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in aid that goes unclaimed because people just never bothered to look into it. We tend to act impulsively. That's where I want to go to school. Let's take out a loan. Things are covered and let's move forward. But there are things like scholarships and fellowships from a variety of sources. So we want to think about that as we look to making good decisions. And so these elements, these options have different eligibility criteria. So if you are looking for an athletic scholarship, well, you need to have a certain degree of athletic ability and either be recruited or a preferred walk-on. If the criteria is academic, it could be needs-based. Some need to be paid back. Others don't need to be paid back. But it is incumbent upon you as a parent and also your young adult student to make a thorough investigation. And that's why we say it is important to start early and to plan. Okay, so let's look at the sources and types of financial aid that are available. So when I say sources, that means, well, where is the money coming from? Well, federal and state governments offer different types of financial aid. They back loans. They also offer fellowships and grants. Another source of aid are the colleges and universities themselves. So for example, we have a Chancellor's Associate Scholars Program, or we have unique programs that are only available to students who are accepted to our university or the university system. A lot of the monies that go unclaimed come from companies, clubs, and religious organizations. These are private organizations that will fund. Banks and lending companies, yeah, all day in every way. These are the original generators of student loans. Whether it's Wells Fargo or a credit union, these are institutions where they want you to pay them back, absolutely. But usually, in most cases, students will undertake a sort of a mix of sources that they will use throughout college. So you may receive a scholarship, but the scholarship may only be for 1 year. So really, every year you sort of have to figure out where the money is going to come from. What are the primary types of aid that you can get? Grants and gifts. So these are financial aid that do not need to be paid back. Oftentimes, they are need-based, so based on socioeconomic status. And there are certainly other criteria, but a lot of grants and gifts are need-based. So they'll look at income, they'll look at the assets parents have, and they'll make a judgment from there. Students who are independent have different criteria. Scholarships, now these are primarily ability or interest-based, and they do not have to be paid back. So for example, there are scholarships in certain professions. So if you are pursuing teaching or law enforcement, there may be scholarships available. It could be that you have excelled academically and you have won a scholarship. The most common I see, the most common things that I hear about, and the most daunting are loans. And these must be repaid by students or parents. And those of you who have student loans, it's not sort of a thing that they forget about. So when you graduate or when you leave school, one of the first groups that is going to give you a call will likely be your student loan guarantor. Important to know about student loans, especially for the students themselves. There is a point at which if you take out $10,000 in loans, $20,000, well, what's an extra $10,000? And, I want to be able to, live a good life on campus. And student loan money is, you don't have to have collateral, things like that. So it's really important to think about loans, think about things like interest rates. And we'll talk about that in greater depth. Work study. This is paid part-time jobs to offset the cost of college. In my department, we have several work study students, absolutely fantastic, intrepid and clever students, and they are paid, in our case, by the federal government to provide assistance. So they work part-time, but they also work at the university. And again, if you think about the big picture here, this is going to be a mix. You will see a mix of different financial aid types for most students in undergraduate or graduate school. Now, some of you may be thinking about, okay, well, I want to go to a public university. The UC is a great public university, and I will attest to that fact. It is a marvelous public university. It is a public Ivy, top 10 nationwide, at least top 20 globally. But it can get expensive. When my mother went to UC Berkeley long ago, you did not pay tuition. UC was free to all who qualified. I think it was the top maybe 8 or 10% of students in the state. But if you qualified, you didn't have to pay tuition. We didn't even use the word tuition in the 80s. We talked about fees, but we never charged tuition. But now fees and tuition are real things, and it can get expensive. But you can go to the UC for free if you meet certain criteria. So we have a blue and gold opportunity plan that makes sure that you do not have to pay our system-wide tuition and fees out of your own pocket. And there is a certain income level criteria. So families who are making less than $80,000 a year. And if you qualify for financial aid, and we'll talk about the use of a form called the FAFSA in just a second, but you go for free. And that's just for starters. That is not the extent of financial aid. That doesn't cover room and board, but there are other grants and scholarships available for that. So reducing the cost of attending. Now, I would like to say, aren't we great? We're the only ones who do that, rah, rah, University of California, but USC does it too. You will find that most institutions have similar programs. And when they get to a doctoral study, if that's something that they may be eventually interested in doing that, most doctoral students don't pay. They're usually supported so. The idea here is to counter that popular mythology is I can't afford it, I can't pay for it. You can, you just have to be a smart shopper. One of the things about being a smart shopper is knowing the difference between the total cost of attendance and the net cost of attendance. Where you get the sticker shock is the total cost of attendance, where you look at to go to Yale, it's going to be $120,000 a year. There's no way that we can afford that. Don't even bother applying to Yale because it's going to be too expensive. We won't even be able to get you through half a year. But you also have to look at what we call the net cost of attendance. So this is once you factor in financial aid, so after you've completed the federal FAFSA form and you've consulted with the campus or the system, you subtract that. So the net cost will always be lower than the published cost. Now, it's not like going into the car dealer and say, okay, well, let me talk to my manager and I'll come back. And it's not a sort of give and take like that. But you will find that there is a lot more available to you than you might think. And when we talk about the total cost of attendance, we're not just talking tuition and fees, but we're also talking things like housing. We're talking about books and other expenses. So as you think about this, you may find that there is a zero net cost of attendance. So important to look at. There are a lot of campuses and systems that offer online tools that help students and parents calculate these costs and give you estimates of financial need. Now, when I was going to school, this did not exist. I had to figure out, well, how much does it cost to live in Southern California, and how much is this? And we had to use the abacus to figure it out. And how do I know if I even qualify for financial aid? These days, it is much more straightforward and much easier. Now, when you download this slide deck, which I hope you will, if I haven't worn out my welcome with you, you will find a linked resource from the University of California that by campus, you say, okay, how much does it cost to go to UCLA? For 4 years, and what kind of aid is available. The University of California offers a cost calculator to help you make a smart decision, as does the Cal State University, as do many private and independent colleges. Now, San Diego, I know, is a Navy town and a Marine town and a Coast Guard town. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention aid that is available for military service and for military families. So every branch of the service offers some kind of assistance for those interested in post-secondary education. So, if you are in, and maybe you are interested in going to medical school, there are programs, or there are scholarships. So this is not just for colleges and university, but this is also vocational and technical schools. There are opportunities to support the costs of college and university for family members of active duty personnel. Also veterans, so things like the post 9/11 GI Bill and benefits from the VA. These are all things that we'll talk about in later sessions, but this is just sort of an overview. ROTC has been around for much longer than I've been in school, but it's an option for undergraduate students, sometimes for graduate students as well. There are scholarships from groups like the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion. So already, in addition to offsetting costs, with federal grants and with system-wide scholarships, there are also different types of opportunities available. So how do you know? How do you know what you qualify for? And the easy answer for this is getting started with the FAFSA. What is FAFSA? FAFSA is the free, underline free, because that is important. This is not something that you have to shell out anything for as parents. Free application for federal student aid. And you fill this out if you want to take out financial aid from the federal government, not just loans, but also grants and scholarships. 13 million students file the FAFSA every year, and more than $120 billion in grants, work study, and low interest loans from the U.S. Department of Education are available to them. And a lot of states, colleges, and systems will use the FAFSA to determine eligibility for other types of aid. So it's not just from the federal government. Oftentimes the state governments will use it. Oftentimes the campuses themselves will use it. So the big first thing to do after you kind of have an idea of where you might want to go is to say, okay, what are my options in terms of paying for it? And one of the ways that you know how much you can afford is by filling out this free form. So again, it is cost-free. And if you are seeking any kind of financial aid, you got to fill it out. You got to turn it in. When I filled it out long ago, I used to have to go to get a stamp and go to the mailbox and wait. But this can be filled out online through ed.gov. There is an app for your handheld tablets and telephones. This does have to be filled out every year because we know every year people's situations may change. So, once every 4 years, because it helps to reevaluate. Families at every income level may submit the FAFSA, and there are a variety of supports available. So some people might say, I don't know if I qualify for need-based aid. Doesn't matter. There are programs that are available for what we might call traditional middle-class families and families at any income level. It's free. It is worth filling it out. So you submit it through the mail if you believe in the old school method, or you can do it through the website or the My Student Aid app. But be careful of filing deadlines. You can't call and say, hey, can I have an extension on my FAFSA? So look at not only the deadlines for federal submission, because that's more broadly based, but for the college that you might be interested and in the state in which you live. Now, I'm going to end on this because I'm cognizant of our time. I want to leave maybe a few minutes for the questions. But you may have a student who says, well, yeah, but I want to study abroad, either for a semester or I want to go get my degree in another country. I guess I'm out of luck. Well, that's not exactly true. There are some institutions abroad that where financial aid that's determined by FAFSA, that's available through the federal government, is available. There's an entire list of colleges and universities that participate in this program. So again, whether you're going abroad to Spain or to Italy or to Mexico or to where have you, you may be able to be eligible for aid for that. Or you might say, hey, I'm going to do all of my years at a foreign university. So if you go to the studentaid.gov website, you will be able to find it there. So the next time that we come together, we are going to finish this out, and we're going to look at scholarships and grants that are unique to California. We're going to look at merit-based aid, so scholarships. We're going to have a bit of a look at athletics and Division I, Division II, Division III, all of the divisions. I'll explain the difference between those. And then we will close out financial aid and we'll start looking at admissions and filling out applications and essays and interviews and all of that good stuff. So at this point, I am going to just go to my contact information and welcome back Mr. Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Dr. Appel. We do have a question on the chat about the FAFSA form that I'll give
Yes.
in a second, but I did want to mention something that you brought up. I actually went to a UC. I went to UC Santa Cruz, and when I was at UC Santa Cruz, I had the pleasure of studying abroad. I got my education abroad paid for by the federal government through the FAFSA, and it actually ended up at that time cheaper than being at home at UC Santa Cruz, because obviously the housing in Santa Cruz is a little bit expensive compared to where I went to in England. So it does actually sometimes, even though you might think you're going somewhere foreign, it might actually end up working in your advantage when you do the study abroad programs, which are highly recommend for students to do. The question that I have, or that it's on the chat, Dr. Appel, is about the FAFSA form. Like, how soon should they be doing it? Let's say their student is a senior. Should have they done that a year before, 2 years before? How soon?
Well, you're going to want to fill it out as you go into school, because they're looking at year by year. But this is not to say you should not download it and practice, because the FAFSA does take some effort in filling out. But what I would do is, it really counts the sort of the year before you go in, because they're looking at income levels and things do change. But this is not to say, even if you have kids who are in middle school or in 8th grade or 10th grade, download it, get familiar with it, and practice.
The other one is if there are any options for students who may not be permanent residents of the United States.
Yes, there are, and we are going to get into AB 540. We are going to look at options for what we call dreamers and those who may not be permanent residents. Yes, the University of California has specialized programs, as does the California State University. So we are going to delve into that more completely. And there are all sorts of options that are available. So yes, do be patient. We're getting there.
Okay. There's no other questions that I see on the chat, but I do want to, with the 3 minutes that we have left, I want to make sure that if you are a parent who would like to see this once again, you can always go through our website, the YouTube channel that we have, and we will post it there, along with the links on how to get to the question and answer page, as well as if you have any further questions and we don't answer them right now, or when you're watching it, something, sparks a question, you can always post them there on the Q&A page that we have, and then we will try to answer them and post them on that website. Okay.
Well, Mr. Dominguez, certainly Ms. Martinez and Ms. Simmons, thank you so very much. Now, I am headed out of country first thing tomorrow, but I am always available for our Sweetwater Union High School District parents and caregivers by email, and happy to take and answer your questions. So if something does spark you, just send an email and we'll do our best to answer it. And I will be back next Tuesday with a bigger look at financial aid and filling out the application. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Appel. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Thank you, Ms. Martinez, for your wonderful interpretation. We appreciate you. And thank you very much. And we will see you next Tuesday, same time.
Next Tuesday it is. Thank you all.